So good morning, everybody. This is moving. I had to. My last Carnivores in Nordic countries is my title, and I will introduce you the populations and distributions, and a bit something else, but mostly really basic things, and I try to be as simple as possible. I'm basically is quite simple person, but sometimes I can speak quite a complicated way, especially that if it's in English. But if I will come too complicated, please draw a lasso and move me away from stage. So here are pictures of the 4 large carnivore species living in Nordic countries. All of those pictures taken in Finland. In wild, except the lynx picture, which is from too far of Rovaniemi. Nordic countries form an area where large carnivores are quite widely distributed. If you compare to the other parts of Europe, mid-Europe and southern Europe, exception for the wolf, that is quite wide distributions also in certain mountainous areas, Pyrenean and Carpathian and Apennines and etc. If we just look into the changes, the population growths happened during the last decades in Finnish reindeer husbandry area, we can see that large carnivore numbers has increased quite clearly, almost dramatic way. If we, for example, compare brown bear numbers, what we had late 60s, we have almost 4 times more nowadays, and wolverine 5 or 6 times more, and lynx perhaps even 10 times more than during 70s. It's really hard to say what has happened in wolf population. It has been fluctuating, and it's not from decade to decade, but also from year to year and seasonally quite much. It's really hard to say what is the trend, but I think that we now have more wolves as a result of population growth our areas outside reindeer husbandry area, because there are young sub-adult wolves moving to north, heading to north, and there's more wolves which are traveling through reindeer husbandry area nowadays than during later decades. What is important is to remember that the distribution ranges in total, global distribution ranges for these 4 large carnivore species are really wide. And if we take, for example, the brown bear as a species level, it's really a circumpolar distribution, but in Eurasia we have another subspecies than in North America. And brown bear is the secondly abundant large carnivore worldwide. American black bear is there are almost 1 million black bears, but brown bear is still doing quite well. It's more than 200,000 individuals globally. Of course, there's some populations which can be treated, for example, here in Spain, Cantabrian mountain populations are really small and in a real big risk to get extinct. But in North, brown bear is doing quite well, better and better. And in Finland, we have around population which is living at the edge. It's more or less like a peripheral population of huge continuous population. It's mostly living in Russian territory. Scandinavian population is more independent, although it at least to some extent can be seen as a part of this huge Eurasian population. If you look into population estimates, very long-term estimates from Sweden tells that numbers declined quite low. So in early decades of last century, there were only 100 or 200 bears in Scandinavia, but nowadays almost 300. Numbers were a bit higher some years ago, but the recent estimate is 2,800. In Finland as well, numbers has grown nicely. We don't have just similar, really long-term population estimates. Probably it is possible to construct it because I think that even for Sweden, it's they have some little bit uncertain elements in the old estimates. But anyhow, our numbers now are 1,500 brown bear, and nowadays the population during very recent years it has been declining a bit, but I think that it will be more or less stable because harvest rate has been cut down during last 2 years. In Norway, there is some small pockets on Venska Mammana, I would say, because they are mostly those brown bears, especially reproductive females, are living just at the Swedish border, and the numbers are quite moderate. Bear hunting is a very important hobby in some areas, and it's exercise in those high density areas in Sweden and then Finland, especially in East Central Finland counties, North Karelia and Kainuu, and also in radio husbandry area. And nowadays the numbers of bears shot annually are almost 300 in Sweden, and half of that in Finland. So it means approximately 10% harvest rate if you take the population numbers into account. But what is really different between Sweden and Finland is the sex ratio of such bears, and is really dramatic if we are looking into young bears who are at the age when they are dispersing, when they are traveling from their natal home ranges. And I think that this is mostly because we have that big and dense Russian bear population neighboring us, and those bears who come from Russia abroad to Finland are mostly young males. And if you're looking into the changes, the recent changes in the genetic structure of Finnish brown bear population, it actually fits very well to the picture, so that in southern Finland, in the mid-Finland, where the population increase has been most clear, the genetic diversity and change in genetic structure has been really rapid. The similar change has happened in northern Finland, but this is quite understandable, because here already when we are looking into the period which is these data cover, there has been quite a high genetic diversity already. And I think that here in northern Finland the high genetic diversity is could be at least explained by the fact that there are dispersing bears coming from two directions, from northern Sweden and from Russia. And one reason why there has been so rapid, quite a special rapid change in southern Finland is that in south there are 3 different genetic clusters which are sources of bears coming into Finland: the green, red, and this big, large gray area. Then, where I'm talking about wolf, which actually almost as numerous as brown bear globally, and almost 50,000 wolves are living in Russia. Wolves' former distribution range, the distribution worldwide has been much wider compared to what is nowadays, and it has been disappeared, especially from areas which are highly populated by humans. Here in Scandinavia, we have Fennoscandia, not Scandinavia, Fennoscandia. We have a situation where you have 2 breeding populations. That it has Swedish one, Swedish and partly Norwegian one, the Scandinavian wolf population, and Finnish Russian wolf population. And there are some connections between these 2 populations, which I will tell about later. but mostly these connections are pretty weak. The population trends during last 20 years in Scandinavia and Finland has been quite different. There has been quite a steady continuous growth in the number of family groups in Scandinavia. In Finland there was quite nice growth from mid-90s to up to 2006, but then there was also quite a clear decrease. But very recent monitoring results indicate that numbers are now increasing again. So I really wanted to take Scandinavia as a whole because it's pretty hard to say how many packs are living in Norway, how many packs are living in Sweden. What I know is that there is 3 just for Norwegian family packs, which is, by the way, is the official target for the Norwegian wolf population. But there's a lot of transboundary packs, and that's made it quite difficult to say what is the real number of packs in Sweden and what is the number of packs in Norway. But anyhow, this picture illustrates quite nice what is the situation. You can get an idea from the former pictures as well. But it also tells that in some years there is reproduction litter born in reindeer husbandry area, like happened some years ago in eastern Lapland. Although this thought, and actually I have seen some misleading information that there's no reproductions in Finnish reindeer husbandry area at all, but sometimes it happens, mostly at Russian border. But when we take a look into the damages wolves cause to reindeer husbandry, they are mostly caused by young wolves that have traveled from the breeding population to north, and that is the common phenomenon, a common thing for the whole. All of the Fennoscandian countries, all of the Nordic countries. And if we, for example, look into the age distribution of wolves shot in reindeer husbandry area compared to the age distribution of wolves shot outside reindeer husbandry area, there's clear difference. So here are more 1 and 2 year old wolves who are at the age when they normally are moving and traveling from their natal territories to new and looking for new destinations. But when sometimes the reproduction occurs, it is even more costly, of course. And the number of reindeer killed by wolves in those cases are far higher. We have 3 herding cooperatives where wolves have reproduced during the last 15 years. And within those herding associations, the number of reindeer killed and found doubling that compared to the years when there is no reproductions. The wolves do really move far from the home areas, especially Scandinavian wolves. The maximum distances they travel from the home territory are much higher if you take data concerning GPS or radio collared wolves. And we can speculate, for example, the possible background for a reason for that. It could be some genetic aspect, because those wolves that have once moved and settled down in the present breeding area in Scandinavia, they have really traveled long distances to be able to do that. In Finland, in contrary, most of the wolves who actually head up north from the NATO territories are settling down pretty close their home area and start to move and prey on domestic reindeer in southeastern corner of our reindeer husbandry area. And another explanation could be also that these wolves already have reindeer as their prey image, because they are coming from the area where they have used to prey on wild forest reindeer. That's different from the Scandinavian wolves. Anyhow, some natural migration from east to Scandinavia has taken place during last years, and some of them have even succeeded in reproducing. So they have been able to move so far south that they have been reproducing in the decent breeding area of Scandinavian wolves. But most of them have been disappeared on the way to south. Then I jump into Wolverine. Its global population is about 50,000, and of that a little bit more than 2,000 in Europe, and in areas totally a bit more than 20,000. So really circumpolar distribution, and the northern one. In Scandinavia we have about 1,000, a little bit more than 1,000 wolverines, and the Scandinavian population, which actually is extended its distribution to northernmost Finnish Lapland, is already about 1,000. And numbers in Finland, as I have written down, are more or less a guesstimate. We have that formal monitoring systems like in Sweden and Norway, where they are looking for an active dens this year. So it's much to do for have reliable numbers of wolverines. But I know that numbers have been increasing recently, and they are increasing. And this reproducing range in north, for example, has been extending southwards. In Scandinavia, numbers have been increasing if you're looking in the long-term trend. But during very recent years, lately, there's been sort of decrease in Sweden. Unfortunately, I don't have any similar for the Finland. Finnish reindeer husbandry is practicing supplemental winter feeding quite extensively, and in many herding cooperatives, reindeer are carried up to fences to be fed there in mid and late winter, and there's a real strong impact on how much damage to reindeer herding wolverines cause. And also in those herding cooperatives where reindeer are mostly free-ranging, there are much more wolverine observed in the area. And this might be that the reindeer is critically important prey for the wolverine, especially in late winter when wolverines have a breeding time. And if the reindeer are fenced, I think that they are not doing very well. Then Eurasian lynx, it's really not circumpolar because it's a Eurasian species. I don't know much about this species, but John Linnell can tell more if somebody is curious. But maybe these numbers are, for example, 50,000 globally. You cannot correct because we don't know very well how is the monitoring done, for example, in Siberia. But anyhow, in Russia, the recent estimates are 20,000 and decreasing. That's reason I don't know why. And the history of Scandinavian and Finnish large carnivore populations are different. And one consequence, for example, is genetic diversity. Scandinavian lynx population experienced a very strict bottleneck in 1940, and it is still one haplotype, whereas in Finland there is more haplotypes, more genetic diversity, because we are connected to big eastern populations. But what is a little bit curious is the present density of how much? Not just 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. What is?
From your lunch.
So you had to forget lunch. Okay, good. Yeah. Me too. So okay, the densities in mid and southern Finland are even unbelievably high because they are so much higher than in Scandinavia. But what is important if when we compare Finland and Scandinavia is that the monitoring methods are more or less the same, and it is the only species where we can say that they are quite exactly the same. And population trends are different. So in Norway and Sweden, lynx populations, lynx numbers have been decreasing, while in Finland there has been a very, very strong and steady increase. For mysterious reasons, because in Scandinavia the prey basis, I think that it's better than in Finland. It's broader, widely distributed, and there are similarly mountain hare and a smaller prey, like in Finland. Yes, I promised 2 minutes, and it's about 2 minutes.
Okay.
What may be the longest 2 minutes ever, but